The 1960s psychedelic rock movement is one of the most misunderstood chapters in music history. Most people reduce it to a set of cultural signifiers: the counterculture, altered states, San Francisco, flower power, and miss what was actually happening technically and
Emily tries but misunderstands.
artistically inside the recording studios of that era. What was happening was a complete dismantling of every rule that popular music had established in the decade before. Song structure, instrumentation, production methodology, the definition of what a rock record was allowed to sound like. All of it was being questioned, tested, broken, and rebuilt in real time. The 10 songs we are covering today are the recordings where that transformation is most clearly documented. Some were revolutionary because of a single production decision. Some because of a lyrical approach that no one in mainstream music had attempted. Some because of an instrument that had never appeared on a rock record before. All 10 permanently expanded the boundaries of what rock music was understood to be. If you're new here, subscribe right now. This channel covers the real stories, technical details, and cultural context behind the music that defined rock's golden era. Every video goes deeper than the surface. Here are 10 psychedelic rock songs that defined an unforgettable era. Number 10. The Rolling Stones. Paint It Black. In 1966, the Rolling Stones made an unexpected turn. The band, built on raw British blues rock, walked into a recording session and came out with something that sounded like nothing they had recorded before, and nothing else on the charts at the time. Paint It Black opened with a sitar riff played by Brian Jones. It was the first sitar riff in a rock song to reach number 1. A genuinely historic first in a period full of them. The instrument added an Eastern texture that, combined with Charlie Watts' martial drum beat and the coiled urgency in Mick Jagger's vocal delivery, created an atmosphere that was unsettling in a way that most rock music of the era deliberately avoided. The lyrics operate from a specific emotional place: grief, obsession, and a desire to erase color from a world that has become unbearable after personal loss. There is nothing ambiguous about the emotional content. It is bleak, direct, and completely committed. Technically, the track carried another innovation that tends to get overlooked. Bassist Bill Wyman reinforced the low end by playing the foot pedals of a Hammond organ simultaneously, a choice that created a thunderous, unusual foundation beneath Jones's sitar and Watts' insistent rhythm. The impact was lasting. Paint It Black opened the door for Eastern instrumentation and mainstream Western rock, and demonstrated that the Rolling Stones could fully embrace psychedelic sonic territory without losing the raw identity that had defined them from the beginning. Number 9. The Doors. Light My Fire. Few songs from this era capture the full range of psychedelic rock's ambitions as completely as Light My Fire. Released in 1967 on the Doors' self-titled debut album, the song was written primarily by guitarist Robbie Krieger, with lyrical additions from Jim Morrison. The album version runs beyond 7 minutes, built around extended improvisational passages that include a jazz and Indian-influenced organ solo from Ray Manzarek and a swirling, immersive guitar solo that together constitute a genuine journey rather than a conventional rock breakdown. That structural choice, short verses framing a long instrumental center, was psychedelia working exactly as intended. The song takes the listener somewhere, holds them there, and returns them changed. The lyrics, charged with sensuality and oblique references to altered states, produced one of the most documented incidents in 1960s television history. When the Doors performed the song on The Ed Sullivan Show, Morrison was explicitly asked to change the word higher to something more acceptable for broadcast. He sang it anyway. Direct eye contact. No hesitation. The band was immediately and permanently banned from returning to the show. That moment crystallized something essential about the Doors' identity. They were not a band interested in accommodation. Light My Fire wove together rock, psychedelia, and even traces of bossa nova into a single composition. It remains one of the definitive documents of what the genre was reaching for. Number 8. The Jimi Hendrix Experience, Purple Haze. The opening riff of Purple Haze does not ease the listener in. It arrives as a declaration. Something new is here, and it intends to stay. Released in 1967, the song was Jimi Hendrix's formal introduction to the world. A single that compressed blues roots, raw distortion, Eastern-influenced scales, and an approach to the electric guitar that had genuinely no precedent into 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Hendrix was a pioneer of the fuzz pedal, and Purple Haze is its defining showcase. The whammy bar manipulation, the controlled feedback, the fearless approach to sonic territory that most guitarists of the era actively avoided. All of it combined to produce a record that changed the understood possibilities of the electric guitar permanently. The song's association with hallucinogenic experience was widespread and immediate. Hendrix himself offered a different account. The inspiration came from a surreal dream and his long-standing interest in science fiction. That context does not make the music less powerful. It makes it more interesting. Beyond its musical impact, Purple Haze carried cultural significance that its chart position, top 20 in the United States, number 1 in the United Kingdom, only partially, reflects. It broke racial barriers on rock radio at a moment when that mattered enormously, reaching a mainstream white rock audience with a black artist operating in a genre that audience had largely understood as its own exclusive territory. Number 7. Jefferson Airplane, White Rabbit. At the height of the Summer of Love in 1967, Grace Slick wrote and performed a song that did something genuinely difficult. It used children's literature as a framework for addressing psychedelic experience directly and got onto mainstream radio. White Rabbit draws from the imagery of Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, using the fantasy narrative as a structural metaphor for an altered state journey. The song builds from an eerie, quiet opening to a climax that culminates in the command, "Feed your head," 3 words that functioned as a direct cultural statement in the context of 1967 San Francisco. The musical structure came from an unlikely source. Slick built the song on a framework inspired by Ravel's Bolero, a piece designed around inevitable, escalating repetition, reinforced with Spanish-influenced chord progressions. The structure mirrors the emotional arc it describes, slow, relentless, and overwhelming. The song reached the top 10 in the United States, a remarkable commercial achievement for something this openly unconventional in its thematic content. Slick had written it before joining Jefferson Airplane and brought it with her as a fully formed piece. White Rabbit proved that psychedelic experience could be addressed directly in popular music without sacrificing radio accessibility. That combination of boldness and commercial reach made it one of the defining documents of San Francisco psychedelia. Number 6. The Beach Boys, Good Vibrations. Released in 1966, Good Vibrations raised the production standard for popular music in a way that took years for the industry to fully absorb. Brian Wilson built the song as what he called a pocket symphony, not a conventional pop record constructed in a single session, but a modular composition assembled from fragments recorded across multiple studios over a period of more than 6 months. The budget was record-breaking for a pop single at the time. The methodology was unlike anything in mainstream music production. In 3.5 minutes, the finished record contained a level of structural complexity, sections moving from near whispers to soaring choral explosions that stunned both critics and professional musicians on release. It hit number 1 in both the United States and the United Kingdom. The instrumentation was as innovative as the architecture. An electro-theremin provided the song's most distinctive tonal quality. Rhythmic cello reinforced the low end in a context where strings were typically decorative. Sharply contrasting sections moved the listener through emotional states rather than simply sustaining one. The song's concept came from Wilson's mother, who described what she called good vibrations, an intangible energy that certain people emit. Wilson's achievement was translating that completely abstract idea into pure, organized sound. A brief ban in Spain due to lyric misinterpretation did nothing to slow its global impact. Good Vibrations remains one of the most technically sophisticated pop recordings of the entire decade. 5 songs in, 5 more to go. And the stories get more extraordinary from here. Quick pause, if you haven't subscribed yet, right now is the time. This channel is built specifically for people who want the real history behind the music, the technical details, the context, the stories that don't make it into the standard accounts. Subscribe, hit the bell, and let's keep going. Number 5. The Birds, 8 Miles High. Released in 1966, 8 Miles High holds a specific distinction. Many music historians consider it the first fully psychedelic rock song ever recorded. The Beards had built their identity on folk rock, clean harmonies, melodic clarity, accessible structure. 8 Miles High was a deliberate and complete departure. The band moved into a sonic space that drew simultaneously from John Coltrane's free jazz explorations and the Indian ragas of Ravi Shankar, built on a rock framework that sounded, by the standards of 1966, as though it had arrived from a decade in the future. The title operated on 2 levels simultaneously: airplane altitude and an altered state of consciousness, a double meaning that led directly to radio bans across multiple stations before most of the audience had heard it. That response actually confirmed the song's cultural significance. It was understood as a statement, not just a record. The distorted 12-string Rickenbacker guitar work soars above the mix in a way that had never been heard in a folk rock context. Chris Hillman's hypnotic bass and Michael Clark's steady drumming created a foundation that kept the track structurally grounded while the guitar seemed to operate in entirely different sonic territory. It reached number 14 on the Billboard charts, a remarkable commercial position for something this experimentally ambitious. Its influence on every psych rock artist that followed is direct and documented. Number 4. Cream, White Room. The opening track of Wheels of Fire, released in 1968, announces itself immediately with a 5/4 drum pattern and a ghostly wah-wah guitar figure. 2 elements that signal, from the first measure, that this is not conventional rock territory. White Room was built on a lyric written by poet Pete Brown, drawn from his own documented experience of isolation, alone in a white room, cut off from the outside world. That specific biographical source gives the song's dreamlike, melancholic imagery a concrete emotional foundation. The lyrics are not abstract for effect. They describe something real, filtered through a surreal lens. Eric Clapton's guitar work throughout the track is technically extraordinary, an instrument that seems to express grief rather than simply produce notes. Jack Bruce's vocals carry a raw power that keeps the song anchored emotionally, while the production moves it into hallucinatory territory. Ginger Baker's drumming provides the precise, muscular backbone that prevents the track from drifting into formlessness. The wah-wah pedal application throughout White Room, directly influenced by Jimi Hendrix's technique, helped establish it as a primary expressive tool in rock guitar. Its dynamic structure, shifting from tight restraint to explosive release, felt genuinely ahead of its time on release, and has not aged since. Number 3. Pink Floyd, See Emily Play.
Emily tries but misunderstands.
Before Pink Floyd became defined by grand conceptual albums and elaborate live productions, they were the creative vehicle of Syd Barrett, an eccentric and genuinely original songwriter whose influence on the band's DNA cannot be overstated. Released in June 1967, See Emily Play was Pink Floyd's first major commercial success, reaching the top 10 in the United Kingdom. It introduced mainstream audiences to Barrett's specific approach: the intersection of psychedelia, childhood fantasy, and what might be described as controlled chaos. The song was inspired by a vision, a schoolgirl emerging from a forest, and its lyrics construct a world that is innocent on the surface and deeply surreal beneath it. Emily plays in imaginary meadows. The imagery is childlike. The sonic treatment is anything but. Production techniques deployed throughout the track were genuinely experimental for the time. Guitars manipulated with found objects, backward tape effects, carefully placed. Echoes, a lively piano that provides harmonic grounding while the other elements move into stranger territory. Barrett's mental health deteriorated significantly after this period. and his involvement with Pink Floyd effectively ended not long after. But See Emily Play preserved his specific creative vision at its most fully realized, and it established Pink Floyd as the leading voice of London's underground psychedelic scene, a foundation the band built on for the next 2 decades. Number 2. The Beatles, Strawberry Fields Forever.
Strawberry fields.
In 1967, the Beatles released a single that represented the most inward, most experimental, and most sonically ambitious work they had produced to that point. Strawberry Fields Forever was written by John Lennon as a dreamlike reflection on his childhood in Liverpool, specifically a real location, a Salvation Army garden called Strawberry Field, where he had played as a boy. The song transforms personal nostalgia into something stranger and more universal, a sonic journey through memory that feels simultaneously specific and completely unmoored from time. The opening mellotron notes transport the listener immediately. There is no easing in, no conventional introduction. The atmosphere is established in the first 4 seconds, and it does not relent. The song's unconventional structure carries a production detail that most listeners never consciously register. The final recording was assembled by fusing 2 completely separate takes, recorded at different tempos and in different keys. Producer George Martin and engineer Jeff Emmerich achieved the join through tape speed manipulation, a solution that should not have worked and produced something that sounds seamless. Backward tape effects, studio experimentation, and layered instrumentation combined with Lennon's lyrics, steeped in ambiguity, quiet resignation, and an almost philosophical uncertainty about the reliability of perception, gave the song a quality that Lennon himself regarded as among his finest work. It did not top the charts on release. Its influence operated on a different timescale, shaping the direction of experimental rock for the years that followed in ways that chart position cannot measure. Number 1. Procol Harum, A Whiter Shade of Pale. In the summer of 1967, a band that virtually nobody had heard of released a debut single that became the defining sound of an entire cultural season and has never fully left. A Whiter Shade of Pale arrived with a Hammond organ melody directly inspired by Bach, specifically the air from his orchestral suite No. 3, a Baroque composition written in the 18th century. That melody, refracted through a rock production context and combined with Gary Brooker's solemn, gospel-influenced vocal delivery, produced something that felt simultaneously ancient and completely contemporary. Keith Reid's lyrics operate in a zone of deliberate, beautiful impenetrability. Vestal Virgins, Fandangos, a miller telling his tale. The imagery is dense, poetic, and resistant to literal interpretation. That resistance is the point. The words create an emotional atmosphere rather than a narrative, and that atmosphere is one of loss, disorientation, and something unresolvable. The song was recorded almost entirely live, with minimal production layering. That choice preserved a purity of performance that most contemporary pop and rock recordings of the era deliberately avoided in favor of studio construction. It reached number 1 in the United Kingdom and broke into the top 5 in the United States. Enormous commercial success for something this deliberately uncommercial in its structure and content. Procol Harum's subsequent career produced genuinely strong work that has largely been overshadowed by this single debut. Legal disputes over songwriting credits, specifically whether organist Matthew Fisher deserved a compositional credit for the Bach-derived melody, continued through the courts. For decades, none of that changes the primary fact. A Whiter Shade of Pale has been covered by dozens of artists across every subsequent decade, appears consistently on lists of the greatest songs in popular music history, and still sends a specific, unmistakable sensation through anyone who hears that opening organ line. That is not nostalgia. That is a permanent record. 10 songs, 10 different approaches to the same fundamental project, expanding what rock music was understood to be capable of. A sitar on a number 1 single. A 7-minute improvisation on a debut album. A guitar solo that rewrote the instrument's possibilities. A children's fantasy used as a framework for something entirely adult. A pocket symphony assembled across 6 months in multiple studios, a song spliced together from two incompatible takes that somehow became seamless. This is what the 1960s psychedelic rock movement actually was. Not a cultural moment defined by its surface imagery, but a concentrated period of genuine musical innovation that the decades since have been absorbing and building on ever since. Drop a comment right now. Tell me where you're watching from and which of these 10 songs you encountered first. I read every one, and if you're not subscribed yet, do it now. This channel is dedicated to exactly this kind of deep, documented look at the artists, recordings, and real stories behind the music that built rock's golden era. Every video is built on facts, detail, and genuine respect for the history. Subscribe. Hit the bell. There is a lot more coming.